Hey, how's it going, universe? Welcome to another movie review. Today we're going to be talking about 1953's The Wages of Fear. The film is directed by Henri-Georges Clouzot. It's written by Henri-Georges Clouzot, adapted from a novel by Georges Arnaud of the same name. It stars Yves Montand, Charles Vanel, Foco Lully, Peter Van Eck, Vera Clouzot, William Tubbs, Dario Moreno, Antonio Senta, and others. The logline plot synopsis is: in a decrepit South American village, four men are hired to transport an urgent nitroglycerin shipment without the equipment that would make it safe. So yeah, The Wages of Fear. So this has been something that's been on like one of those proverbial like, oh, I need to watch this list for probably 5 years. And the reason why I know about this movie, or brought it to my attention first, is because I really like the movie Sorcerer, the William Friedkin 1977 movie Sorcerer. It's a personal favorite of mine. It's just one of these kind of cool hard ass 70s movies, and it is a remake of The Wages of Fear. Now, granted, Friedkin kind of does his own thing, and maybe tomorrow we'll talk about Sorcerer. I don't know, but it's a remake of that movie. It follows kind of the same basic structure. Some of the particulars are different, but I had never seen the original, and always clearly obvious. It was very respected, even though it had kind of a tumultuous time coming out in America. It's actually never even released in its entirety until I think 1991. Kino International found the cut and restored it, brought it to the United States. But we'll get into that a little bit. I just want to talk about the movie itself because it's just one of these times where you're just like, what the fuck have I been doing? Like, I think I'm a movie fan. I think I like movie. I enjoy cinema. I respect it. And I had never seen The Wages of Fear. It is one of my new favorites. Like so many, this has been great. The pandemic year for watching movies has been really great because I've kind of filled in so many blind spots, so many gaps in like classic cinema history. And The Wages of Fear is definitely one of those. It is one that I would say just stop this fucking video right now and go watch Wages of Fear. It's on the Criterion channel if you have that. It's also on HBO Max if you have access to that. It's a longer movie. You're gonna have to take the time, but it was just completely engrossing from the beginning. It takes place in this little South American village. You have all these kind of people from all around the world. You have this kind of this American oil company that's set up shop there, and some of the people there, they don't like it. So there's all this kind of really great personal drama. The movie is almost like could be split into two parts. It's this really interesting kind of character drama for the first hour of the movie. And then the last 90 minutes, because a 2.5 hour movie, is this really tense, exciting thriller in a way. They mine so much tension and so much intensity out of just the situation of having to slowly drive a truck through treacherous terrain with a bunch of nitroglycerin for 300 miles. You feel the stress, you feel the hot stickiness, you feel how uncomfortable they are, how pissed off they get at each other. Some people are more courageous than others, some people are more desperate than others, and it's great. It's fucking just riveting cinema from frame one. And the reason why the back end of the movie works so well is that first hour. And the first hour is completely engrossing. If this movie was just about these ne'er-do-wells, these dissidents, these kind of losers living in the South American village, it would be compelling on its own. You could have just done a character drama that took place there with this cast and these characters, and it would have been completely compelling. It's almost just like an added bonus that you get this fucking amazing kind of sojourn, this amazing trek across the jungle. And it's so impressive. And so much of it is not just the story. It's completely the director, Henri-Georges Clouzot, who's somebody that I knew about because I've seen a long time ago. I saw his movie Diabolique, I think, and I think that's the only one I've ever seen. But so I was kind of aware of him. And Diabolique is interesting because it's kind of like a proto Psycho. It's got some of that Hitchcockian kind of vibe to it. So I always kind of looked at it in that way. But this is something so special. I like Diabolique, don't get me wrong. It's been years. I actually kind of want to revisit it because now I'm in kind of the mindset. I'm I really got to check out more of this director's work, But this was the fundamentals are so solid, and he's able to just elevate everything. It reminds me of a lot of like the work of Carl Theodor Dreyer. We've talked about him a few times. I bring it up all the time. The Passion of Joan of Arc, the 1928 silent film, who he completely elevates the art form in the same way that like Orson Welles did with Citizen Kane. And now we have, Clouzot with The Wages of Fear. They take everything that everybody has learned up to that point and just fucking blows it up and just makes it interesting again and subversive and doing new different techniques. So this movie is very heavily influenced by like a lot of German expressionism, especially when you get on the road. Because one of the difficulties with telling a story like this is if it's like two people in the cab of a truck for 90 minutes, and you're trying to mine tension and character stuff, like you also got to keep it visually interesting. You have to make it kind of look appealing to the eye, give it some flair, give it some sense of style. And that's really when you see like him as a director making these really smart choices by the way he would light the interior of the truck, especially at night. It creates these beautiful faces, these beautiful silhouettes, this beautiful use of shadow. Like it's like German expressionism, like I said. And that's actually one of the reasons that it reminded me of Carl Theodor Dreyer, because that's something that he kind of pioneers in a lot of ways. Not maybe not the one that mastered it or whatever, but he is definitely a guy that like created that kind of cinematic language. He's one of those people, one of those pioneers. Also, the use of close-ups in this movie is just incredible, because the performances are great all around, but they're all very subtle and nuanced, and there's so much to these men and who they are underneath like what we see and what we get to experience with them. Like these actors really bring a full kind of sense of life to these guys. They feel real, they feel tangible, they feel like kind of blue collar losers, in a way that I don't think Friedkin, to talk about Sorcerer for a second, like Friedkin's is very exciting and it's very like hard ass. I call it a hard ass movie because it's very like Bill Friedkin. Like, we got to make it real. We got to show the realism here. We got to make this, you guys are just tough dudes. And part of that was like the casting in that movie is like some of those people are so anonymous to me, like to an American audience, except for, what's his name? The guy from Jaws. Name is eluding me at the moment, but you know who I'm talking about. That one, I really love Sorcerer, don't get me wrong, but that one is much more pure visceral because that movie is kind of more focused on just the journey, like just the tension of driving the trucks across the jungle. That's much more where the focus of that movie is, whereas this one, it really splits the difference because it really does feel like a fantastic, well-rounded character piece before it even becomes that. Like I said, back in 1955, when this premieres, it gets flagged. It's in the midst of McCarthyism, the McCarthy era. It gets flagged for being kind of anti-American. That's what they said, anti-American sentiment. A few of the actors in the movie, I think, were known to be socialists or communists, maybe. I think, what's his name? Yves Montand, the French dude. I think he was known, like, openly, maybe socialist, maybe communist. I'm not 100% sure. But a lot of it had to do with the sentiment because they were talking about an American oil company that is there is exploiting the natural resources of South America, but also exploiting the people that live there. Like, so we have the construct of this. They have to take these trucks of nitroglycerin to an oil site where they're because they need it for their work. It's so dangerous that not many people get through. And they're just like, fuck, there's so many bums and losers in this village. We tell them we're going to pay them a chunk of money. And we'll just send them there until until one of them makes it. Until one of them gets through. So there is this kind of like, it's kind of like more like anti-capitalist, anti-corporate than I would say like anti-American. There's nothing in here that I think like attacks the sense of Americanism or the values of a country. It's more of just talking about the carelessness of corporations and the kind of bloodthirsty nature, the exploitative nature of corporations. It's a little stupid because it's like, this is not like a uniquely American thing, being a greedy company. But I think because of like, because people's perception of what America is like, the capital on the hill, the sun behind it, bringing up everybody, together. I guess maybe people have that kind of sense of it. Yeah, it's crazy because you can really see like the influence of this movie and so many other things. It actually Not like specifically the plot or anything. It reminded me a lot of Michael Mann's Collateral. Collateral is a movie, the Jamie Foxx, Tom Cruise movie, but a lot of that movie takes place inside of a car. And he has the kind of the similar hurdle to overcome, which is like, how do I light a car? Like, how do I make things look dynamic and cinematic in a car, like while we're driving around? Another movie, what is it called? Not Brick. Oh, what the hell is it? The Tom Hardy one, when he's in the car. You know what I'm talking about. The whole movie is Tom Hardy in a car. It's not called Brick. The Concrete, you know? Anyways, but that's another movie where, like, you know, it's all about dynamic lighting in the car and how do you use kind of the natural light from the dash, et cetera, et cetera. And it reminded me a lot of that. Like, you know, during the car scenes, like I said, obviously, you know, Clouzot is very heavily inspired by German expressionism out of like the 20s, 30s, and probably, you know, somewhere in the 40s as well. And I would say, like, that's one of the great things about art. You know, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, and like we take these skill sets, these ideas. Sometimes we iterate and we improve upon them, but we're also kicking it down the cultural line. You know, we're kicking it down so that future generations will have an opportunity to be exposed to it and also utilize it. Because, you know, you're going to remember, like, not everything makes it all the way to the end. Not every movie that's ever made is something that is going to exist in the cultural zeitgeist forever, if it even like ends up making it through the various format changes we go through, right? So you gotta respect, like, when people like this, like, wear their influences kind of heavily on their sleeves. You know, it's somebody I used to give a lot of shit to over the past couple of years, and it's not like I don't overdo it, but like Quentin Tarantino. Saying I give him shit is probably hyperbole. It's probably overstating the fact, but you know, because he is a guy very much in that vein. Like, he lifts style, shots, tons of shit from a lot of obscure 60s, 70s, and 80s cinema, because he just has a deeper bench. He just knows more about it than you. And, you know, once you get older, you start seeing where his influences come from. Like I've said in the past, it's like, it's less impressive. It's not that it's not interesting. It's not that he doesn't remix or utilize it in new, interesting ways. It's just less impressive. I would, you know, after some consideration, like thinking about like what I've just said about this, I actually, even in this moment, I think I really respect that now, like in a way that maybe I just wasn't thinking deeply enough about it. You know, Tarantino movies will probably, because of their importance to like the zeitgeist of the moment, he's kind of saving technique that may not have been utilized in other things other than obscure movies. So the lessons learned on those things, maybe they would have never really manifested into anything new, you know, had somebody like Tarantino not kind of saved them. So there's, you know, you got to respect that. You got to appreciate that. I think that's something it's worth making note of, if anything, you know. But yeah, I cannot recommend this enough. If you've never seen it, oh my God, you're in for such a treat. Like, I was completely blown away by it. Honestly, I can't wait to watch it again. I watched Sorcerer like immediately after this. I had a weird day. I had a day where I was like, I watched the original and the remake of two different movies. I don't know if I'm going to have a chance to talk about the other ones, but this is, I decided, fuck all that shit. Like, let's talk about Wages of Fear, just for the sake of having another video out on YouTube about somebody talking about Wages of Fear and telling you to go watch it. It's a great movie. It's an all-timer. Definitely would probably make my top 20. And I've said that a lot lately. I've been, like I said, I'm just watching, kind of going back and filling in some gaps. And I think you're in for a real treat if you check out The Wages of Fear. It is well worth your time. So say we all. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to know more about Zoobox, there's a bunch of links in the description for Facebook, for Instagram, for my Twitter, for my brother Dan's Twitter. Also, if you've ever seen The Wages of Fear or Sorcerer, you know, leave a comment. Tell me which one you prefer. Also, you know, remember to subscribe, like, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff. You should do it. I think you'll if you like this video, you'll like most of the stuff on the channel, right? Right? All right, everybody. You have the best day ever. Goodbye.